There is a strong argument that Catherine of Aragon should have accepted the end of her marriage to Henry VIII, not because Henry treated her fairly, but because doing so might have prevented years of political and religious conflict. Catherine had been married to Henry since 1509 and had been a loyal and respected queen. However, by the late 1520s, their marriage had produced only one surviving child, Mary, and no surviving son. For Henry, the lack of a male heir created fears about the future of the Tudor dynasty. Although Catherine had understandable reasons for refusing to accept an annulment, agreeing to Henry's wishes might have produced a more peaceful outcome for herself, her daughter, and England. The most important argument concerns the succession to the English throne. Henry VIII believed that England needed a legitimate male heir to prevent instability after his death. The Tudor dynasty was still relatively new, as Henry's father, Henry VII, had taken the throne following the Wars of the Roses. Henry therefore feared that leaving only a daughter as his heir might lead to disputes over the succession. Catherine was several years older than Henry, and by the late 1520s, it had become extremely unlikely that she would have another child. From Henry's point of view, ending the marriage and marrying another woman offered the possibility of producing a son and securing the dynasty. Catherine's acceptance might have also prevented the enormous religious upheaval caused by Henry's attempt to end the marriage. Catherine firmly believed that she was Henry's lawful wife and appealed to Pope Clement VII for support. When the Pope would not grant Henry the annulment he wanted, Henry eventually rejected papal authority in England. The Act of Supremacy of 1534 declared Henry the supreme head of the Church of England. If Catherine had agreed to withdraw from the marriage earlier, Henry might have had less reason to challenge the Pope so dramatically, although it cannot be certain that England's later religious changes would have been completely avoided. Accepting the separation could also have protected Catherine herself from years of suffering. Henry gradually removed her from court and separated her from their daughter Mary. Catherine spent the final years of her life living away from the king and continued to insist that she was the rightful Queen of England until her death in 1536. If she had accepted retirement to a religious house or another honourable settlement, she might have been allowed greater comfort and possibly better contact with Mary. She could have maintained considerable public respect as Henry's former wife while avoiding a long personal struggle against the king. An even stronger argument can be made concerning Princess Mary. Catherine's refusal to recognise the end of the marriage placed Mary in an extremely difficult position. After Henry's marriage to Anne Boleyn, Mary was declared illegitimate and removed from the succession. She was pressured to recognise Henry as the head of the church and to accept that her parents' marriage had been invalid. Catherine understandably wanted to defend her daughter's legitimacy, but continuing the dispute arguably made Mary's position more dangerous. A negotiated settlement might have allowed Catherine to seek guarantees for Mary's status, her financial security, and her place within the royal family. There were also wider political consequences for England. Henry's determination to obtain an annulment dominated English politics for years and contributed to the downfall of important figures such as Cardinal Wolsey and Sir Thomas More. England's break with Rome was followed by major religious and political changes, including the dissolution of the monasteries and resistance to Henry's religious policies. Catherine could not have known exactly what would happen, and Henry himself was responsible for the decisions he made. Nevertheless, if Catherine had accepted the end of the marriage, one of the major causes of this political crisis would have disappeared. However, any argument that Catherine should have agreed must recognise why she refused. Catherine was a deeply committed Catholic who believed that marriage was a sacred and permanent bond. Henry argued that their marriage was invalid because Catherine had previously been married to his brother Arthur. Catherine maintained that her marriage to Arthur had never been consummated and therefore believed that her marriage to Henry was completely lawful. Accepting Henry's argument would have threatened Mary's legitimacy. Catherine therefore saw her refusal not simply as personal stubbornness, but as a defence of her marriage, her religion, her honour, and her daughter's rights. Overall, however, there is a practical argument that Catherine of Aragon should have accepted a separation from Henry VIII once it became clear that he was determined to end their marriage. Doing so might have protected Mary, reduced Catherine's own suffering, and possibly prevented or limited the political and religious crisis that followed. Catherine's refusal was courageous and understandable, and Henry's treatment of her was often harsh, so responsibility for the crisis cannot simply be placed upon her. Yet from a purely political point of view, accepting an honourable settlement may have been the wiser choice. It could have allowed Catherine to preserve her dignity while avoiding a struggle that she ultimately could not win against a king determined to secure both a new wife and a male heir. Thank you for watching, and please stay tuned for the next episode of History in the Making.